So is modern era Yu-Gi-Oh worth playing? Make sure you guys smash the like and crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So we're going to start off over here with Tenpai, and I also want to say here, this discussion was inspired by the people that went from last format into this one. They're like, I'm taking a break from this one. So with Tenpai, this deck is completely ignorant. If I do accurately believe, from what I've heard from a few people, the reason why people are choosing to take a break from the game right now, it's not so much, the Snake Eyes thing, it's just the random ignorance that is Tenpai. You're sitting down to 30-man locals, you shake your opponent's hand, and, you just get OTK'd in 5 minutes. I was the one doing the OTKing fairly recently in 5 minutes. Had enough time to go get a sandwich from McDonald's and, able to take my medicine for the day. It was worth it, actually. It was good timing. But I can understand the frustration that people kind of feel with this. But, unfortunately, yeah, you can play the game without, trying to drag you on. You can actually play this deck. And to the people that don't like ignorant Yu-Gi-Oh, well, at least you can pick up the deck kind of cheap, alright? And that's the biggest thing. Konami was at least nice enough to look at Tenpai stuff and go, hey, you have alternatives available to you, but this is a discussion, is it worth it to play, modern era Yu-Gi-Oh right now? If an OTK deck that can just steal the game from you frustrates you, no, this is not a format that you're going to want to sit here and endure. Now, there are obviously plenty of ways to deal with Tenpai. Runic, yeah, the stun player over here, yeah. You've got ways to handle it. And, there are plenty of decks to kind of do things, but I mean, you might just lose to the most random things in the world. That sounds like modern era Yu-Gi-Oh in a nutshell. Your opponent opened up 3 hand traps. Oh, we can't talk about the hand trap problem just yet. Actually, so we're going to bridge this into the Snake Eyes segment here. So Snake Eyes and Fire King are still sticking around. They're not well, actually, they still might. Wanted's went down in price. Bonfires is still expensive. I don't think the deck is necessarily $1,000. It probably still is pretty gosh darn close to that price point. I'm not here to look at that. But I understand that the frustrations of last format were kind of the nail in the coffin for a lot of people when the Snake Eye Fire King transitioned over here. And believe it or not, a few people still to this day don't realize that Baron and Savage getting banned was actually the greatest thing that has happened to this game. Them taking out Savage and Baron made Snake Eyes playable. Like, you can play against the deck now. It is not an absolute dumpster fire where your opponent's like, yeah, thanks, champ. 10 negates? Or, it was those generic negates that were issues. And honestly, I have been way more about wanting to play the game right now in my own personal setting here, because I don't have to deal with Snake Eyes going through these negates. Oh yeah, well, who cares? Like, Flamber's Dragon doing some reviving. Their end board is not an issue anymore. You can do it. So, I don't actually, I guess like the biases from last format are still here. They're like, oh, this deck was so much of a pain in the ass last format. Yeah, it was. And those cards were called Borreload Savage and Baron, and they're gone. You don't have to deal with them at the moment, all right? Yu-Gi-Oh is way more tolerable. At least the Snake Eyes matchup, yeah, sure, it's still probably the best deck in the room, but there's a difference between, the deck being here and the deck being way up here, That's the thing. Sure, it could be hit a lot more, but it's tolerable. It really is. This is just Robbie yelling random things and trying to get people excited. Voiceless voice. So, this is where I could actually see some more frustration kind of coming around in the game right now, because Skull Guardian, Barrier, and, the Trap card are all kind of stupid. Alright, the biggest things with this is, oh, well, first of all, how dare I go against the only competitively viable ritual deck that we have at the moment? Dry Turn, I know you're still back there, alright, but you're not competitively viable. Alright, so basically, an Omni Negate, they're forced to battle the 4,000 attack point monster, non-targeting protection on the big guys, and then a trap card that can pop and interact with things. Okay, that's a big thing here. So what do you do to beat this? I mean, your opponent can also ritual summon during your turn. So if you do negate the Skull Guardian somehow, they could technically plop another one down on the field. We also have Sarvis, which gives them targeting protection. So let me tell you how you beat this deck. One, you go first and Ogre the Barrier. That's usually pretty good. If they don't have the Sarvis, Veiling or Ashing the Novox, or Imperming the Novox, depending on how you open up. All of these things, typically, but Robbie, how do you handle it going second? Well, as a Tenpai player, I just strap my board on and I go. All right, that's how I deal with it. Honestly, the Voices match is not that hard to handle. It's just, you've got to rely on your hand traps, and you got to make decisions on the perfect places to hand trap your opponent. And if you're one of those people who's like, just a hand trap for me, I don't really like that. Okay, well then you're not playing Modern Era Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sorry to tell you that. But saying you don't want to play hand traps in Modern Era Yu-Gi-Oh! There's the door. Next up is Branded. So this has also been a modern era thing out here that has kind of detoured people from playing the game. Believe it or not. Branded sticking around for so long has just rubbed people the wrong way because, I just lose to the Gimmick Puppet Lock. All right, I hate this game, and it's like, the Gimmick Puppet Lock, it's like, still there, but it's like, you're over here, Branded's place in the tier list is not where it once was. And I'm going to continue to say that because every one of these sets that we go through here, Branded is going down the ladder, all right? Like, you are adding extra layers of power creep into this, and if you're upset about players just wanting to be happy that their investment has stuck around for this long, this is the longest I have seen a deck that's, like, honestly viably competitive. Like, at this point, Branded is sticking around longer than, it's been here longer than Runic has as a competitively viable deck. And that's actually kind of insane to think about out here, actually. I mean, I guess you have things like Salad, but like the more modern era sense of, like, kind of on the higher end of the spectrum out here, Branded's still doing pretty good. And I'm very surprised about that. But people are just, honestly, if you were able to pick up Branded cards and, you've been able to play this long, congratulations, you're still winning out here. But the fact that the Gimmick Puppet Lock still exists, there are people out here that have honestly just been detoured by it. I can't, a part of me just wants to go just get over it. Like, it's just one more part of Yu-Gi-Oh! But at the same time, it's like, I think I have one Branded player at my locals of like 30 people, and they usually get steamrolled by Snake Eyes or another incarnation of another deck, so I don't really have to worry about that so much along the way. So, that's my experience. Now, little side notes here for everything else. There are always going to be things in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! That are going to detour people. I get it. We've seen it. All right, but if you're choosing, Yu-Gi-Oh's never going to be a perfect game. There's always going to be something that's going to piss you off and annoy you. It's just how life is. All right? This is real talk. All right, like, you've got to choose to play the game, and you've just got to deal with the bullshit. That's how it is. All right, unfortunately, that's always going to be Yu-Gi-Oh! There's always going to be something that's unfair. How dare your opponent open up 4 hand traps? Oh, you're better than me? Oh, well, yeah, that's true. You shuffled your opponent's deck, you cut it, you gave them those 4 hand traps. You just varianced yourself. That's all there is to it. We're in a modern era hand trap heavy format. And you are going to have to understand with those hand traps comes, whoops, there went my combo. What will I do now? Pick up my cards and call it a day. Or you adapt and you continue to play the decks that you want to play, understanding that every deck has a weakness. I can't believe I'm saying this. Every Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck has something it loses to. And I'm sorry that you got comboed. That's all there is to it. All right, I watched a Gandora player playing the little Yugi deck. And they, upon desired, banished all of their Silent Swordsmen and Magicians, and they didn't have a target besides a gadget. And they couldn't win the game because of it. They could not OTK. That is variance at its finest, and it happens. You guys have a good rest of your day, and remember, welcome to Modern Era Yu-Gi-Oh!
Patrons, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.